because it's always a good morning when you're in Kentucky. I'm Lily Brislin, Dr. Lily Brislin, Director of the Food Connection. So glad to be with you all this morning on our weekly culinary inspirational journey. Thank you all for joining us. Hi, I see we've got a couple visitors coming in. And this is our weekly check-in where we see what's fresh and seasonal, because you know we're all about that local seasonal eating and helping you all feel comfortable, confident, inspired, energized about working with seasonal product. We've had, so far this season, we've had asparagus, we've had kohlrabi, which is very exciting. We did some lamb work, which was super cool. And this week, I know we're heading into the holiday weekend, and maybe some of us are missing our friends and family because we're staying socially distant. We are having our own Food Connection family reunion. So with that, I'm going to bring in Bethany, who's going to be our host today. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
And who else do we have here today, Bethany?
Oh my gosh. We have, he's a former UK student and former Food Connection alum. He is basically the person that trained me, and his name is Viktor, and we can bring him in. Hello, Viktor.
Hello.
It's
Nice
Viktor.
How are you doing?
Viktor was one of our very first student workers. First, we had his partner, Rachel, and then she brought him in and graduated 2 years ago. Last year.
Yeah.
So we've missed him terribly, but he's out on our UK South Farm. So when I go and pick things up, I could see him. And we had a dinner party, a little Bethany.
Oh my gosh. How are you doing, first of all?
Just normal safe practices on the farm. We've had to add a lot of cleaning procedures and being safe, keeping distance between each other. Certain things can't be done unless we're close to each other. So then we have to take safety precautions. So a little difficult.
But it seems like you guys are managing, because I hear that there is a lot of hard work going on out there. So tell us a little bit about that.
So we're entering our 7th week of the CSA, 22 weeks in total. So we're sort of still getting started. We're getting to the really busy part of the year where we're also having to harvest onion and garlic on the side. Those are really big tasks for us, aside from just the normal CSA shares. But other than that, we're in a good place right now.
Good. So you said that you have onion and garlic coming up. What other things do you have coming up the next couple weeks?
We're potentially having our first week of may not be ready next week. That's going to be a big item for us, and everyone always looks forward to their first round of tomatoes every year.
Oh yeah.
And then we'll start having melons and things later on after that, which I'm excited for.
Oh my gosh. So do you have your own CSA share there too?
Yes. So everyone that's a full-time staff here has a CSA share.
Oh my gosh, I bet you love that, and getting something new every week to cook with.
It's really good. Yeah, I look forward to it every week.
So do you have to have a share in order to get some of the delicious produce that you guys are producing?
Oh, absolutely not. So the way we plan every year is that we have extra planted of every variety of whether that's tomatoes and squash. Everything gets excess just in case there's ever a pest issue or a weed issue or anything like that. And so any extras that we harvest are available at our farm stand every Thursday between 4 and 6. We have our campus location, and we also have our farm location here at UK South Farm.
Okay. I remember Tanya.
Sorry.
No, Tanya, I know definitely would get some from the campus location. And that's, oh my gosh, some of the most beautiful produce I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm very happy.
Yeah. Speaking of Tanya, we shall bring her into this family reunion. Hi, Tanya.
I get to have all my little chicks back with me. It's almost like a reunion. I miss hugs, but outside of that, it's good to see your faces. So, Viktor, also, you guys cook out at the farm, right?
Yeah, we're slowly feeling out if we're going to bring back community lunches. We've had one already. It's difficult, obviously, with COVID. So we're still feeling it out, but yeah, we've had our first one as a group.
Nice. And then you do kind of a family meal each week, right? With
we try to, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah, so growing food, cooking food, it's bringing it all together. Victor, this week, what is your favorite thing out of the CSA this week?
This upcoming week?
Yes.
Ooh. I'm really looking forward to. I think we're gonna have the Caraflex cabbage. I'm really looking forward to.
And that's the one that's kind of a cone.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Too bad we can't have some of that right now. I love my weird vegetables. I love bringing them to people's attention. All right. Well, Victor, do you have to hop off, or are you gonna hang around with us while we cook?
I'm gonna hang around for just a little bit, and then
Okay.
have to stop and check in with the crew.
All right. Well, jump in, interrupt at any point, and Bethany, if you'll bring up my other my cutting board camera, we'll get started here.
Okay,
right.
and one last thing, if anyone has any questions, if you want to add those into the comments, I can pop in and ask Tanya at any point, and make sure to turn your notifications on so that you can see us every Monday and see our lovely faces and cooking demos, and I will be back.
All right. So I picked up from the farm stand today, or on Thursday, on the campus location, and it is really safe. You walk up and you bring your own containers or bags, whatever you want to take your produce home in. Also, at the beginning of the season, they have lots of plant starts and vegetable starts. I actually got some flowers from the farm at the beginning of the season and have managed to keep them alive. But this week, we had carrots and basil. So we're going to do a roasted carrot dip. And I made some pesto out of the carrot tops and the basils, which will be in another dish, actually. And then we had lots of beautiful summer squash. And I think in the CSA share, if you're a CSA member, you also received some zucchini. But I wanted to use the yellow squash because of the green pesto. We're going to do summer squash roll-ups. It's reminiscent of lasagna in a way. There's some ricotta and some herbs and cheese and tomato sauce and lovely things coming together like that. Victor mentioned the peppers and tomatoes. We've got squash and the basil, and pretty soon we'll have some eggplant. And you know what comes in? That is ratatouille season. So we'll probably have that stew sometime when all of those vegetables come into season. Lastly, we have some beets. They're wonderful for slicing, and you may want to bring Victor in. I forget the name of them, but they're long and cylindrical. What are they called?
Solyndra.
Easy enough. Solyndra Beets. Well, I won't get started yet, but they're long and cylindrical, so they're nice for getting lovely even slices. And we're going to make Beets Agrodolce, which is just sweet and sour beets. Has a little heat to it. It's more of an Italian dish. So let's get started so we can get through all three recipes. Hard to say quickly. So I'm going to bring up the kit for the carrot dip because we've got to get these in the oven. Now, the only thing you want to do with these lovely little carrots from the farm is just give them a good wash and scrub. The one thing you want to do when you get them home, though, is they had lots of lovely green fronds on them. I take those off first thing. With any kind of root vegetable, and even if it's a stem or a bulb that's above ground, if it has greens on it, you want to take those off. Those greens will leach out moisture and make your roots soft and kind of almost wilted for them. So I've already scrubbed these. We're just gonna lay them on. Actually, I'm gonna squeeze these up here just a bit because I'm also gonna put on a few chunks of onion. Now I've got a white sweet onion here. You could use any kind really. And I'm not gonna take off too much of this root because I want the chunks to kind of hold together. So I'm gonna get rid of my trash and pull off this peel, of course. Anything that's kind of thick or leathery or dried up, you want to go ahead and pull off. That won't be fun to eat, even in a dip that we're going to puree. And I'm just going to cut this into hunks. So quarters or eighths, depending on how big your onion is. I'm going to leave these in quarters, actually, because I want nice big chunks. And you'll see that the root kind of helps to hold all those pieces together. And now all I'm going to do, I'm grabbing the wrong bottle here. All I want to do is just drizzle a little bit of olive oil over, let me pull this close to you, over the carrots. And then just kind of give them a little roll in the olive oil, rolling back and forth. And then a little drizzle on the onion pieces. I'm going to sprinkle them with a wee bit of salt. We're not peeling, we're not chopping, we're just throwing in whole, and this is a great, easy way. Roasted carrots all on their own are fabulous. I've got the oven at 400 degrees. We're gonna roast those till they get nice and caramelized and really dark brown. Voila, little magic of TV here. We've already got some going. And I did a little bit too much onion on this one, but that's okay because I did get some of it a little too brown, so I'll just kind of cherry pick the pieces I want to use. And I'm gonna pull my food processor up into camera view. Oh yeah, you can see all of that. All right. So I am going to just take my roasted carrots and very quickly chop off those little ends that are left. You can't see that piece, I don't think, but I might even cut them up into little chunks. And then I'm going to take the onions, the good ones, the ones that aren't completely dried out. We'll take some of those. I have some roasted or toasted and ground cumin here. A lot of times I'll just keep the seeds because they keep longer than the ground. I have a little bit of smoked paprika, so we're going to go a little smoky with this dip. And some tahini, just enough to make everything happy. I've got one lemon here. I'm going to use about half of that, the juice of it. So it's not unlike making a hummus almost. And you could do this with just about any root vegetable. You can make beet, carrot, turnip. Victor made a beet hummus or a beet dip one time for us where we had adulting.
Yep, that was really good, really easy.
And you got students to try it, right?
You're right, that's right.
Color.
Yeah, I had students outright say that they did not like beets and they were willing to try it, so that's a win.
So any kind of root veg works well for this. We're just going to pulse this a few times. And if there's not enough moisture in there, I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil. And I'm going to scrape that down one time with my spat. And you could do this any way. I love all different sorts of spice mixtures. We used a Razel Hanut on our lamb that Lily mentioned. That would be lovely in here. Maybe even a Chinese 5-spice. You could go any way with this dip. You could add a little ricotta. You could add some chickpeas or white beans too. But this one's very simple, straightforward. So I'm going to scrape that into a bowl. And oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't add salt. Somebody stop me here. And now it won't go back on. Wonders of technology. There we go. A little bit of salt. And zhuzh it one more time.
The only thing I don't miss about being in the kitchen is that particular food processor. Although the little ones we have are more frustrating, where I'm just like, can I get it in? What's the problem?
Those little ones just don't
Impossible.
like us. That's all. They have very ornery personalities, those little ones. Okay, now, so we've got a little salt in there to balance out all the sweetness of these tiny little carrots. I would love to see what the bricks count is on them. They're so super sweet. I'm going to scrape this out into here. I think I overestimated how much dip this is going to make. Yeah, I'm going to change the bowl out on that. I was looking at the entire amount of carrots, not just the little portion I did ahead. So it's lovely orange. You could even make it a little brighter if you added some curry or some turmeric and went that way with your spice mixture. The recipe will have these spices on it though. Feel free to improvise. There we go. Now, and I also have some little pea shoots here. We have fresh peas going on these days. So this is my little take on peas and carrots. And what I would do is probably serve with some croustades or some crudités, some kind of fresh cut up veggies, and serve those together. Now, let's get this kit out of the way, because we want to start on those Beets Agrodolce. Some similar processes with that. Flip this over. So
That's a pro tip right there. You don't talk about enough, Tanya. It's like, oh, if you do a couple of things, you can just flip that cutting board right on over. You got one side all schmearty, flip it over, keep on rolling. It's just,
keep
how you
on
keep it in the
rolling.
kitchen.
Okay, so these are the Solyndra beets. You can see how long they are. And chefs really love anything that will give you really nice, consistent pieces. Chefs love. It makes our lives so much easier. Here are the whole beets as they came. What I typically do on those, again, is take the greens off. Now, don't throw these away. These are wonderful. Give them a swish in some cold water. Pull them off the stem, chop them up, saute them with a little garlic, just like kale or any other collard, any other green that you really like. So hang on to those. I've just snipped those off as soon as I brought those back here and stuck them in a little bit of water in this container. You could throw them in a jar or in a bag with a really damp paper towel and check on that paper towel if they're in there more than a couple days. So we're going to take these. And oh, well, I'll go ahead and show you this piece. Right here, right? You can, if you want to roast really tiny ones, you could leave a little bit of this on, but I just go ahead and take it all off. And you can actually feel the difference where this one wasn't cut. It's a little bit softer than these. So I'm going to leave this one out. And we will put those on this. Nope, that's not the roasting pan I want. I want the one back here. Roasting pan, and we've got the Solyndra Beets, and I've got some olive oil in a little bowl with a brush. We're just going to put a tiny bit on these and throw them in that 400-degree oven. When you have young beets like this, it's really nice because once you roast them or boil them, they usually just slip right out of their skins. So I'm going to toss these in there as well. Check on the carrots. We're just starting on these carrots. Now, I went ahead and pre-roasted some of those because they take a while. Some of them can take, depending on their size, they can take up to 30 or 40 minutes, even at 400. It just depends on the beet. So I've got these. And also another little pro tip, when you're cutting beets, that lovely fuchsia color gets everywhere. So I am putting a smaller cutting board on top of my big one, and that way I can just get rid of that after I've sliced up these beets. I'm also going to use some gloves because while it is a beautiful pink color right now, it will turn brown later, and I don't want that on my hands. Feel free if you want to. we have had all sorts of things stained with beets.
It is not a cute look. I will just say that. I thought I could somehow be okay with it, and it
Carry
does
it
turn
off.
brown. It looks very, very not cute. So
So we're just going to slice beautiful slices. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but that lovely little sort of tree ring pattern in the middle is, I'm always fascinated by that when I roast beets. You don't even have to have those pretty little candy stripe beets to see the beauty in these. And the color is just absolutely fabulous. I do a lot of beet coulis or mostardo, which is just pureed down with some vinegar. On plates a lot because of the color. And we're just going to slice these up and go right back into the bowl because we've got to make our agrodolce sauce. Now, agrodolce, sweet and sour, that's all it means in Italian. It has a little heat to it, and I am skipping a step on the agrodolce today because I have a chili infused honey. It's Central Kentucky honey, and I think I found some local red chilies. They're mild, but they've been infusing in this honey for a while now, so it's got a little prickle to it. So I'm getting rid of that cutting board. Gonna bring this kit up, and I will swing you around for a minute to our saute pan. Let me make sure. Yeah, that you can see that. Perfect. Okay, I just knocked over my vinegar. So we have the Madhouse vinegar here. And you want equal parts vinegar and honey. I'm going to do around 2 or 3 ounces. I'm using the same size container, so that'll be fine. Now, I do veer from the agrodolce a little bit in that I like adding a little mustard to it too. So we're going to put the vinegar, the honey, you can see those peppers. You don't have to use the heat. You could just do the honey and the vinegar together. Here's my little mason jar for infusing. And I've got just about a tablespoon or 2 of that local sunflower sundries mustard that we love so much. And that's going to go in here. Now, if you didn't have chili infused honey, you could use regular honey and then add a little crushed red pepper or a whole chili to this mixture here. I'm going to add a pinch of salt, tiny bit of pepper, and we're just bringing this up to a boil enough to get everything mixed together. I've got it pretty hot here. I've got it almost wide open high. So what we're trying to do is bring this up to a boil just enough to reduce it a tiny bit. While we're doing that, I'll switch out again. Get rid of these. We'll bring the next kit up here. Okay, starting to get a little bit around the edge. Oh, and I did want to show you guys this. If you can see it, this little teeny tiny came in with my itty bitty carrot. Came in with my carrot fronds. I love show and tell, especially when it's something this tiny. I've had little tiny turnips this size as well as the carrots. Okay, here we go. So we're not reducing this down to a syrup. We're just kind of getting it happy, bringing everything together, letting it reduce just the tiniest bit. I'm going to go ahead and taste this. I want to make sure everything is balanced. It should be sweet. It should be salty. It should have a little heat. Oh, that's just about right. If you think you don't like beets, this is the perfect recipe to try. Number 1, use fresh, locally grown beets. That's probably the best tip I can give you. When you see beets that are in the grocery, they may have been out of the ground for a while. They've lost a lot of their sweetness. They're going to taste mostly like earth, and I think that's what turns a lot of people off. These are much sweeter, much less earthy. Different varieties will have different levels of sweetness. If you really don't like the earthiness of beets, you may want to start with golden beets, and then just roast them like this. Roasting concentrates the sugars, and I like the result with roasting better than with boiling. The only time I boil is usually when we make our big beet pickles, because I want the beet water for the pickling liquid. So I'm going to gently ease all of these slices in here, and you will notice what Bethany and I are talking about. Look, that turned pink almost immediately. I'm going to turn this down, and what you're basically looking to do here is just warm the beets up in the agrodolce sauce. You can do this with lots of different vegetables. I love fall and winter squashes in agrodolce. It's just the perfect foil to anything that's sweet and or earthy, because it's tangy. I think anytime, again, if you don't like beets, if you have a little acid with it, that certainly balances out a lot of the other elements of beets. And we're just waiting for these to kind of heat through. And look at that gorgeous color. Anytime you use beets in a full dish and you're adding beets, make sure to add them at the end, because they certainly will dye everything that bright, beautiful pink if you don't want that pink everywhere. All right, I'm just going to turn that off. I'll spin you back around here to the cutting board, and I'll get my pretty bowl here. Now, you can top this with just about anything. You could put a little goat cheese. That's one of the favorite things to, woo, that vinegar, it caught my breath. That's one of the, great pairings with beets is goat cheese. And you could do nuts. I've got some toasted pepita seeds here, some pumpkin seeds. And again, you could also put this on top of the sauteed greens if you wanted, or mix it in with a salad. Lily and I had a wonderful salad at the beginning of the season. So there's our beautiful beets. And I've got the toasted pumpkin seeds. You could do some pistachios, chopped nuts if you like. I like the contrast of the green with the pink.
And pepitas cost like nothing, right? So this is
right.
a super budget-friendly dish right here.
We try, right?
Low cost.
So it could be a side, or it could be added to a lot of other dishes. So I think this would be nice on top of, in the fall, beets will come back again. So you could do this with a fall squash risotto and just put this on top almost like a condiment, which Italians do a lot. Sometimes they'll use vegetables, not as a side, but like a garnish. All right. Lastly, this is the one that's going to take a little while, so I saved it to last. All right, we have these beautiful big summer squash. Once we start getting squash, we start getting a lot of squash. So this one is going to use up a lot. Like I said, we won't be making ratatouille yet. So that's one way I like to get rid of a lot of squash. Okay, so I'm going to show you two methods, because we want to slice this squash in a way that will give us long, thin pieces. If you have a slicer, that's probably the best. It's going to give you even slices, so they'll cook evenly, and it will give you the same size slice every time. If you don't, I'll show you another way to do that, or you can just cut it with a knife. Work on those knife skills. Just make sure to give yourself a stable surface. So slice off a little bit of the side to give yourself a stable surface for making those really thin cuts. Now, you want this thin enough that it will roll once we've cooked it, but you don't want it so thin. You don't want it paper thin, because it will tear when you try to roll it. So we're looking at a little bit under, maybe around an eighth of an inch or so. If you could go a little thicker, you'll just have to cook them a little longer. And if you look up zucchini or summer squash roll-ups, you'll see what I'm talking about. You could either, I like this big one for it because it will give me a nice big roll. But I've seen them where people do it, it'll take you longer, but have real teeny tiny ones in both the zucchini and the squash, and it really is, it's a nice presentation. It's stunning visually. So I'm going to just take off the stem and the root. And if I were slicing, then I would just take off enough of this side to give me a flat surface. That way then I could cut these slices. So that's how I would do it with a knife. But on the mandolin, let's see if I've got it set right here. You do a couple of practice slices, and this is good because it's not going to be big enough here. That's a little thick. So we'll push this up. Oh, no, pull back. It's always the opposite. There we go. And you might have to use your guard. I would use your guard, not your fingers, to kind of hold the neck down because it's going to be lighter and it's going to want to lift up. So to get these long, thin slices like this, you're going to have to hold that down. And so, yeah, that's about 1/8 of an inch there. It's not see-through by any means. If you have pieces like, I think this one is going to be, you can also, once they're cooked, overlap them like this, and you can get one whole roll out of it. So I'll do a couple more just for illustration's sake.
If you do choose to use a mandolin, be very careful because that will take your fingertips and will take any happiness that you have as you are doing it. So just be very careful. It's very sharp.
Mandolins are like something out of a Stephen King novel. They really, they have some sort of hunger in them. They love to bite. So yes, be extra careful. And even with those little tiny handheld slicers. Now, if you have thinner, of course you want a longer one than this, but if you have thinner squash, then you might be able to get away if you have a large enough slice or peeler, you might be able to get away with doing it with the peeler. Now, your slices will be really thin, so be careful not to overcook, but you just start taking it off. You might want to even, again, cut aside for yourself. But once again, this is, maybe we should do it down like this because you want to watch your knuckle. People forget that peelers are blades too. So that's a little thin. So I would really watch, you're not getting nice big slices, but in a worst case scenario, you would be able to use that. We're gonna put those on a sheet pan. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put a little oil down on the sheet pan first, brush this. Love my pastry brush for stuff like this. And just throw these slices on here. You might want to alternate them so you can get more on the pan. And then another brush with the olive oil on the actual slices. And sprinkle of salt. All right, that's going into the 400-degree oven. That will not take very long at all. We're getting really close on the others. But of course, I did pre-bake some. I had a whole pan of them, but I pre-rolled some as well. And we're gonna make a filling for these. So this is the pieces coming out. We're gonna set those aside. Just pull them when they're done. You just want them flexible enough to roll. They don't have to be falling apart. In fact, you don't want that. So flexible enough to roll. We're gonna make a stuffing for them out of ricotta, one of my favorite substances on earth. So I've got a cup of ricotta. And you think about this kind of like the ricotta layer to your lasagna. I'm gonna do something very similar to that. But again, you can improvise all you want. You could add vegetables to this. Swiss chard came in the UK CSA this week. Maybe you could chop some of that up and saute it and throw it in here. I've got about, I'm gonna use about a 1/4 cup of this mozzarella I've cut into little pieces. And I have some Parmesan. Now, I did make a pesto to go on top of this, but I didn't put the cheese in the pesto because this is all cheese. So it's just carrot tops, basil, garlic, and pine nuts. So we do a little parm, maybe about a 1/4 cup of that. And then I've got some garlic Scape pesto here. I just thought it would be, we have it in the kitchen. I thought it'd be a nice add-in, and that would save me from, I'm still using a local product. This is made by Food Chain downtown in their processing kitchen. And it saves me from having to chop up a bunch of garlic or a bunch of basil and add it in. Although I do have homemade pesto, I could throw that in here too, but I want to save that for the top. All right, so we're just going to mix this together. If you are growing your own squash and have squash blossoms, you could chop some of those up in here as well. Just pull the stamens out and take the stems off, and then cut them into slices. I'm going to add some salt and pepper, a nice pinch of pepper. I like quite a bit of ground black pepper in ricotta because it is so mild.
Favorite bit of trivia. It's not trivia. Many people think that if you take the squash flowers off your plants, you're going to lose squash. That is
I thought that for a long time.
Many people do. Even I have some farmers I knew early on. Many, if not all, I wish Victor was still here with his botany knowledge, but I think all cucumbers have both male and female flowering parts. And so some will produce food, but the majority of the big flowers that we use are the male flowers. So you just need a couple around. You don't have to leave all of them on. And so that's the ones that you pick. And so you're not actually taking away the fruit producing power of your plant. And they're so delicious. I made fried squash blossoms. Oh, so good.
Oh, yeah. You can use this for same ricotta stuffing for frying squash blossoms. You just take this, again, take the stamen, leave the stem on this time, but take the stamen out and take a small spoon and stuff the squash with this, kind of twist the end, dip them in a kind of a tempura or a beer batter, a really light batter, and deep fry them. And they're absolutely wonderful with some kind of marinara or tomato sauce of some sort, or a chutney, or even like a green pesto or chimichurri type sauce. They're absolutely delicious. I'm going to put 1 egg in to help with holding our mixture. Woo! All right, there goes that. You never know what's going to happen on our show. So I'm going to mix this egg in. And once we get that together, we're going to stuff these squash. Now, I have a bunch pre-made, of course, but I'll show you. I'm going to roll about 4. And I've got 2 smaller kind of teaspoons. I like 2. It makes it a lot easier and cleaner. So I'm just going to pull these off the paper. Oh, they've been sitting a bit too long. Pull these off the paper. Actually, these are ones that I pre-did, and I cut these a little too thin, which is why I have the advice to give. My mistakes become advice that you don't have to make. All right, so let's make sure you can see this. I'm going to put this on the thickest end, and I'm just going to take 1 spoonful, about like that. You can make these as big or as small as you want. Again, if they're big, it won't take very many to fill your casserole. If they're tiny, it'll take a while. And doing this kind of work does take a while. If you've ever been in catering, you know that teeny tiny work like this actually can take more time than a great big buffet. So we just put a teaspoon on the end and start rolling up. If you've ever made crescent rolls, you know how to do this. So you just start with the thick end and roll it up to the point. And we'll do 1 more. Now I'm going to do this in a tiny tart dish, but of course you would want to do enough probably for a small casserole dish, maybe an 8 by 8, or even a large one. If you're going to make it, why not make it? Or a large tart pan. It looks beautiful in that. So here's the tart pan. I have just made.
Can you layer them on top of each other, or would you recommend just doing a single layer? You might have said that already, but
I'm going to do a single layer, and I'll show you, because I'm going to turn these on their side. But what you could make almost like a lasagna with these slices once you bake them, and they're pliable. So you could use those if you're doing low carb, or if you need a gluten free. You could use the spaghetti and the zucchini, or the
I know
you can
what you're
use
saying.
the summer squash and the zucchini as your noodles in the different layers. Yeah,
Okay.
so you could layer them that way, or you could put these one on top of the other. Especially done in a deep-sided casserole. I think you could put more than one layer. So what I would do is do sauce, rolls, cheese, sauce, rolls, cheese, so that you have sort of this distinction in the layers. Right here, I just have a really simple marinara. Tomatoes are coming up. This is just garlic, onion, basil, tomatoes. And then you just cook everything down together till it gets happy, and you puree it. And that's it. Season it, taste it. Put a little bit of that in the bottom. And then I've got some prepared rolls here. We're just gonna turn these. I hope these will stay up on their sides. They've been sitting out for 40 minutes or so now. Stay up on their sides. This one looks a little different. It's a ricotta mixture. But I had it left from a photo shoot, so I decided to use that up today to pre-make a few. Also with all the cheese on the inside, so all that goodness is still in there. So yeah, when you do, you could vary your sizes if you wanted to, and get really creative and artistic with it. And then what I would normally do, I'm just going to do this, is put it on a baking pan, because you can see I've got it pretty full here and I don't want it to boil over. Put it into like a 375-degree oven. And let's magic of TV one more time. So here is our finished little squash roll pan. And I have a plate ready right here. This is just a folded napkin. It's nice for preventing, you've got porcelain on porcelain, so it's nice for preventing that from moving around when you're taking the plate to the table. And here's our lovely carrot top pesto. Now, all I did was I substituted carrot tops for about 2/3 of the basil in the pesto. Again, it's very basic. So just 1 clove of garlic, about a 1/4 cup of pine nuts, 3 cups of the greens, and some olive oil just to get it to the right. And you can make it whatever consistency. Some people like a really thick pesto, but since this is a sauce, I made this one fairly thin. So I added quite a bit of olive oil so that we could drape that on there. Okay, so if you are receiving a CSA, or if you want to go to the UK horticulture farm, or come here on campus by Good Barn, which is one of our conference centers here, you could stop by and make all of this lovely meal here.
That looks amazing.
We so much color.
We will have recipes for you all tomorrow, and we will post it in the comments even after the fact that this is live, so you all can see that. Or if you go to, I think it's the foodconnection.com. Am I right on that? Okay.
It's foodconnection.ca.uky.edu, but just UK Food Connection. Google that, and you'll come to our page.
And you can find a whole ton of other recipes that we've done. They're absolutely delicious. Oh, thank you, Lily, for posting the website in the comments. So you can check that out probably tomorrow for all the recipes. And then, like I said earlier, if you want to turn your notifications on, we will be back here next Monday at 11 a.m. And
actually, we're taking, I should have told you, Betsy, we're taking a break for the holiday. So we're taking an extended weekend. We will not be with you on the 5th, but we will be back on the 12th. And we have a lovely guest, Ford Waterstrat of Sustainable Harvest Farm, we were supposed to do a Cook with the Farmer class with him this summer. But we're doing our best to like bring all these people in that we plan to work with, and that is still just, it's wonderful to see faces. So
we're adapting, we're making it happen. But yes, thank you so much, Chef Tanya. And like I said, if anyone has any questions still, we'll still be able to comment on those. So just shoot us any questions you have. And thank you so much, guys. Have a good week.
Thank you. Thank you to Viktor. Bye-bye.
Bye.